Everyone says there's a right way to retire, that you should plan ahead, that there's just this path. But we're here to tell you that you don't have to be conventional. There are other ways of doing it. We certainly figured it out.
If you want to think outside of the box, if you want to keep an open mind, you can retire early like we did and travel the world if that's something that you're interested in.
So we're going to talk about that right now and fill you in on what we've done.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. All right, let's start out with the conventional path. What's the common wisdom for retirement?
I think it goes into two groups. There are people who don't plan to retire early. They just plan to work until they hit 70 and they plan to get Social Security. They've been making deposits into their 401ks. They've been making investments. They've been saving money their entire lives. So when they hit retirement age, they can retire. There are also people who have this grand vision and they know they want to retire early. So they've made very focused plans to sacrifice a lot of their lives to saving money. They've avoided consumerism and they retire at 50 or 40 or whatever time that they've had in their minds. And both of those options are really great. We're not here to knock them, but
we're a little jealous of them sometimes because we didn't seem to have either the forethought or we didn't have the corporate pension or a lot of things that might have made it easier for us to be more conventional. Personally, I'm not conventional to start with. She's had to put up with a lot of my entrepreneurism and things like that. You may have run into something like that in your life where you thought you had a path that you're going down and then something deviates it.
I was one of those people who absolutely loved my work. I never wanted to retire, so I didn't have plans to retire early. It was not part of my radar. But like all best laid ideas, sometimes circumstances change, and the things that work for you are no longer working for you. And that doesn't mean that you have to be stuck. Right. It does mean sometimes that you need to think outside of the box. And really, that's what we did.
When it comes down to it, what is really important in life and what are we striving for? Are we striving for that big promotion? Are we striving for millions of dollars? What is really important? And I think what we've been talking about is what makes us happy.
Absolutely. I feel like during the pandemic, we went through a ton of thinking about, like, we're working really hard and we can accumulate more money, and how much money is going to be enough that we feel comfortable retiring. But we had jobs that we weren't really happy in. And do we want to work to afford our stuff? Because we were living in San Francisco, which we loved our home, and we didn't want to give it up. No. But at the same time, we kind of thought, well, if we have to work at jobs that we're not enjoying in order to afford where we're living, that doesn't really make sense. Yeah. And when we were watching people dying around us and realizing that we have one life to live, and are we spending it in a way that if we had 6 months to live, is this what we would be doing? And we both realized absolutely not. Exactly.
Yeah, we loved where we lived. We loved the city. We loved our apartment. We had set up a very nice routine in life, and everything felt good. We really were very happy, and we were working from home. So that kind of gave us more freedom to do the things we wanted to do, even though sometimes our hours were longer. But we said, what's going to happen after this? What's going to happen once we get called back to work, which I did, and what's going to happen down the road? Are we really enjoying what's happening at our companies, the changes that are happening? Is that happiness? Is making sure we keep this apartment, making sure we keep this lifestyle, is that what's going to make us happy, even if it requires us to be unhappy for part of the day? And I think the resolution was, we can't retire here, so we have to keep our jobs. We have to keep pretty high-end jobs.
Or we could do something different.
Yeah.
And part of what was resonating in the back of my mind is the whole concept of health versus wealth, and the idea of we could retire with a lot of money and be struck by cancer. And in the United States, that can be a devastating financial consequence for you. A lot of places don't have good enough health insurance that you have the ability to do anything else, even if your cancer is in remission or whatever, you're bankrupt. And we just kind of thought, we don't know how much time we have. We want to make the most of our lives. And so maybe we need to focus on, while we're healthy, let's do the things that we want to do. We may get tied down because our children we have grandchildren, or that there are health problems in our family and we need to take care of elderly family members at some point.
So there's a window that we had that we could see, well, if we do something right now, we're both very healthy. We can basically go anywhere because our family is spread out around the country. So it's not like staying in one spot. We get to hang out with everybody. So we love to travel. That was one of our happy points. We found so much joy in exploring the world, exploring other people's culture. We said, how can we pull this off? How can we make this our retirement?
So let's talk about the ways that we had to think differently in order to come to the excitement and the peace of mind to sell everything we own in order to travel the world full time and retire early.
So in leading up to this decision to change everything, to decide how we're going to live our life in retirement, we said, okay, what do we need to do? First of all, since we can't afford an apartment in San Francisco without full-time jobs, and since we hate our full-time jobs at this point, we're going to give up the jobs, which means we have to give up our full-time apartment, which means we have to decide where we're going to live. We thought briefly about being expats somewhere, but again, that didn't quite fit in with the scheme of giving up everything. We decided we wanted to sell everything and just be more free of all the things were tying us down.
A lot of people will choose to find a cheaper place to live. Obviously, San Francisco is expensive. There are many, many cheaper places in the United States, but we've been car free and we love it.
Yeah.
We did not want to live someplace that we had to drive someplace. We wanted to be free of a lot of the responsibilities that are inherent in living in the United States.
Yeah.
And we could have maybe got someplace small so that we had a home base. But we felt like that was going to take money out of our ability to travel and experience the world. So the idea that maybe we had a home base that we visited once, maybe twice a year, that still wasn't central to all of our family or friends, just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Why would we pay any amount of rent or anything when we weren't going to really be there?
Exactly. And we thought about, okay, so the money we spend in rent, what if we took half of that? Could we live on half of our rent budget and travel the world with inexpensive Airbnbs, with places that didn't cost a lot to eat, where we could spend less on food, still not have to have a car because we'll be in cities that are walkable or maybe have great public transportation. So we looked at it as a holistic solution. Can we go someplace where we can get healthcare, where we can get easy travel, where we can do all the things we want to do and make sure that we do the things we love to do, which is really travel and learn and explore and discover cultures.
For us, we also knew that in order to be traveling full time, we wanted to travel light, which meant that we were going to live out of a backpack a piece and a rolling suitcase a piece, so that we didn't have to spend a bunch of money and struggle with heavy suitcases.
So carry-on rolling suitcases, not
Yes.
the big boys, which we have done in the past, and we know that's a bad way to travel for us.
So by doing that, it meant that we were going to be giving up everything that we own, which is a little bit scary for a lot of people. But when you're outside of the US and you don't care that you're wearing the same clothes over and over again, there's a tremendous amount of freedom in living fairly minimalistically. Yeah. And we know we could even, in our suitcases, we could still cut down what we carry. But the idea is we were going to be saving money because we're not going to be spending on stuff anymore. I think that was one of the things that we wanted to break free of, the consumerism that's so popular in the world. And we also wanted to be able to just clear our minds. If you have no place to put things, you don't even have to go into shops to buy things because you know that there's no place to put them. So there's a lot of freedom making the decision that we were just going to get rid of everything. Now, if you're somebody that is able to keep a home base, great. But these other tips and suggestions might apply to you.
So one of the big concerns that most people have, and we had too, was healthcare. When you're traveling full time, how does insurance work? Where do we go if we have medical needs? And a lot of that was, we did some research about countries that you could get medical care in, and we looked at travel insurance. That was certainly something we felt like was necessary, even though it's probably one of our bigger expenses sometimes. But the idea is, what if we could actually get good health care, better health care in some situations? And we have. I mean, in Serbia, I actually had surgery that was scheduled, completed, and recovery in 24 hours. That was in and out of the hospital. I could never have done that in the US, even though I worked for a big tech company who had medical services. They never scheduled me in a day. They scheduled me in weeks and months sometimes for things. So this was an incredible eye-opening experience. And we said, wow, there are options out there. There are things we could do. We got glasses in Japan because Judy looked it up and said, hey, glasses are actually cheaper in Japan. So while we're there, medical services in Thailand are great. While we're there, let's get a full range of health checkup. We start to look at, what could you do differently? What places could you go and have better stuff done?
We are fortunate that we're really not on any kind of recurring prescriptions.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've researched certain medications, and we found them significantly cheaper than what you would pay in the US. And I think that once we embraced the idea that there is great healthcare everywhere in the world, not just in the United States or whatever your country is, that we've kept an open mind and said, we're not going to feel like we have to go back to the US for healthcare. And in fact, we pay $5,000 a year, $5,500 maybe, for both of us combined.
For the global healthcare.
For global healthcare. It means that we can only be in the United States for 3 months for medical care, but we can be anywhere else in the world and things are covered. Which also tells you that the cost of healthcare in the United States is pretty unreasonably high compared to everywhere else in the world, because that's the only restriction we have.
Right.
So we have 401ks and we have some investments and we have some savings, but we also recognized that all of that is unpredictable. And so we did not want our conventional jobs. So we had to think outside the box and say, all right, what are we willing to do if at some point we do need to have extra money? Right. Or are there ways that we can hedge our bets so that we don't need to rely on all of our savings and investments right out of the gate?
I think what we started off thinking was, let's have a backup plan. So what if this gets to be more expensive than we thought? We could do contract work. I mean, both of us have a lot of skills that we've built up over many, many decades. And we thought, well, we can do some contract work. We can fill in the money here. And if we slow travel, we'll be in a spot long enough where we can set up hours and do some sort of work schedule. So that was kind of our backup plan. And our other plan was, what if we made some money on the YouTube channel? What if eventually it started bringing a little bit of money? And what if we did some other things that were unconventional and just brought in some money? I've been an entrepreneur, so I'm like always trying to think, what could we do that's not signing into a 9-to-5 job?
Yes, for sure, just by having a YouTube channel, we're gaining experience with social media and blogging and editing and all kinds of things that if we had to work for somebody else or create a company that we did that as part of our income, we could.
I think that's the interesting thing. We're working off of, we'll use the contract skills we have from our jobs, and now it's like, well, now we've got more skills that we've built up over our travels. And now we got more stuff that we could actually use if the day comes that we say, you know what, we really didn't have enough money saved up, so let's add to that.
We know of some people who make money by taking photographs and then selling them on Shutterstock. Yeah. And obviously, you're traveling to incredible places. You have the opportunity to have some incredible photos that other people are probably interested in using. So if you think outside the box to what your skill set is and you're not afraid to take some risks, you actually may find passions that you didn't even know you had.
That's a good point, because I think part of the process of traveling full-time, we've learned so much about the things that we actually like doing that we thought we made a list of here's what we want, but it keeps changing and evolving, and we keep finding new ways of discovering what we love, and maybe this is something cool, and then we go someplace else and go, oh, I didn't even think about that. This eye-opening experience of being presented with more things that you could possibly understand than if you had a lovely setup in one place in the world, which we could have had and been very happy. But I think now there's so many more options, and we feel like we're not even close to touching on all the things we could possibly understand about us and about the things we love. And outside of just finding the things that you're passionate about or finding alternate ways of working, there's other alternate ways of living.
And one of those things is to get accommodations through housesitters.com. That allows you to house sit for someone, maybe take care of some of their chores, their pool possibly, or their pets in exchange for a place to stay. It's not perfect, but it is a way to lower some of your costs if you need to close the gap between your expenses and your income. There are also places like certain hostels where you can work in exchange for a place to live. You can stay in hostels, which are a lot cheaper than various other, like certainly hotels.
Yeah, they're not always cheaper, so you have to watch out on that, but there are some that are much less expensive.
There's places like Workaway and HelpX and another company, Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, that you can be learning about farming. And you're not going to be a farmer and you're going to be working, 18 hours in a field, but you'll be getting an opportunity to learn more about agriculture. And also, there are a lot of people who love to farm or who love to garden and who want to have their hands in the soil. And so it's a way that you can be doing some of that, among other things. There's all kinds of couch surfing and various experiences that you can have. At this point in our lives and where our situation is, we haven't explored some of those things, but we've done a lot of research about them. And definitely before we decided to set out on our own and kind of made peace with, could we do these things if we needed to? And yes, we feel like completely we could do any of them.
So in addition to understanding how much it's going to cost to live somewhere, it also matters how long you live in a spot. And we chose to do slow travel because we've been in vacation mode. We've been on fast travel. We know how much it costs to get from point A to point B and then live in hotels.
It does cost a lot of money every time you move locations. And you can get discounts by staying a week in a place, but you can get bigger discounts, almost half price sometimes, by staying a month somewhere. And if you're staying 3 months in a country that it will allow you to, you can even negotiate for a short-term lease and save even more money. A lot of times by having to hop on a plane, that's where you're going to be spending a lot more money. Yep. If you're slow traveling, spending a lot of time in one place, then maybe taking a bus or a train somewhere else, you're gonna save a lot of money. And in some of our accommodations, by staying in one part of the world for an extended amount of time and not having to do big leaps.
Right. Geographic arbitrage, talking about where we move next. A lot of our money saving techniques are to, if we stay here for a month and we go to the next country over, the flights there are really inexpensive. And if we decide to travel within a country, sometimes they have train systems that are very inexpensive. Plus then we don't have to deal with all the other hassles that go into an airport affords. So there's a lot of options for just moving around.
We use Skyscanner that allows you to say, from here to everywhere, give me a cheap flight. There's another app that you use, Flight Connections.
Flight Connections. And that is a way to say, is there one-hop connections to other places and how many? So if we're going to a certain city, it's like, where could we go first so we have one hops to each of these places and save a little time, save a little money.
Definitely easier and cheaper than moving around a lot and very quickly. Plus you get an opportunity to know where the best restaurants are or your favorite grocery stores. You can walk and just experience living as a local, which is also a very cool thing.
And having a kitchen means you actually get to save money by buying foods locally, cooking them, as opposed to having to eat out all the time, which we know can be very expensive. Go on vacation, spend 2 weeks somewhere, eat out all the time, then see your credit card bill when you get home.
Right.
And if you need to balance out your budget, if you need to go to some places that are maybe a little more expensive.
Or that you just want to. Maybe
Yeah.
you have bucket list places
Exactly.
to visit.
You're quite allowed. We do it all the time. But we also found that if we balance that out with less expensive places like Egypt and Vietnam and
Chiang Mai, Mexico, Portugal. Maybe you're not in the busiest of those cities. There are certain parts of Spain that are very affordable. Italy, if you're not in Rome or Florence, you can save a lot of money. We loved our time in Krakow and Romania and Serbia, and we have plans to be in Albania in just another month or so. So there's a lot of places that will offer you a more affordable way to live to offset. You may not be looking at your budget from a standpoint of month to month because your expenses will vary. But at the same time, the intention is holistically, if you look over the course of a year, you can find budget ways of spending time. And that's a smart way to travel.
So one of the things that we do with travel is to make sure that we schedule enough low-cost travel and to low-cost places so that we can come back to the U.S. It's always more expensive. We have to rent cars. We have to visit 4 different cities at least to visit all the family we have here and friends. So we know it's
And
going
we
to be
still don't cover them all, but
No,
that's okay.
we don't cover them all every trip, but we try to. And so part of this is making sure that we spend time with friends and family by making sure we budget some time for the U.S.
We have several articles that talk about dealing with homesickness and relationships. You can check out our website. We've got tons of articles there if you're interested in reading more. We have also found that we've made friends on the road, and those are cool too. I used to think that the friends that we made in person through our jobs, which was most of the common ways of meeting people, would be friends forever. But we quickly learned that sometimes work friends are just for that season of time while you're working in that particular job. So some of the friends and family that you think you're leaving behind, maybe you're not. Maybe they served their purpose. But the ones that you're really
We
close
still love
to,
them, maybe. We're not discarding them, but
no, you're
but
right.
you're not going to spend the quality time that you think you're going to spend.
Exactly. That's perfectly said. And so you're allowed to branch out and to meet new people. And the people who you've moved away from, you know, we live in a technology era where there's still phones and FaceTiming and Zoom calls and cards that you can write to stay in touch. There's a lot of meaningful ways that you can still be present to those people. We plan to come home once a year to meet up with as many people as possible.
But what's interesting is, in every country we've been in, whether it's lovely viewers that have come up to us and said, can we meet you for lunch? Can we meet you for breakfast? Can we just have a chat? Yes, and people that we don't even know that don't even know us, we'll sit in a restaurant and suddenly have these wonderful conversations. The amount of friends...
And we've exchanged numbers and we have their contact information to follow up with them.
We've followed up, yes. There's been trips, especially like Egypt. We bumped into people during our tour groups that we still stay in contact with.
Ditto with some of our tour guides and some of our hosts. So I don't feel like we are lonely and it's just the two of us, or if you're a solo traveler, that there is no ability to interact with anybody. And it certainly can be a lonely way, but if you think outside the box, you can create the relationships that you may crave.
And thinking outside the box, we're going to meet up with one of our viewers in France coming up because, hey, I'm going to be in France. Hey, are you going to be in France? You know,
well, we can be, so let's make our plans so that we can meet
We're
up.
full-time travelers. We can adjust a couple things here and there. Not a problem.
And that also is true, to have somewhat of a flexible set schedule so that you can do and see some of the places or people that you want to.
Yeah, this year's been a lot of rescheduling because we just decided, hey, there's somebody we want to talk to. Hey, there's someplace we want to go. It's nice to have that flexibility.
I guess I'm curious, what are the obstacles that you might think to a life of full-time travel or to be retired early that are preventing you from doing it?
Yeah, we'd love to hear about that in the comments. So to sum it up, what we're talking about here is how we've thought outside the box, that we decided that we didn't have to retire in the city we were working in, that we decided that we could give up our stuff and actually live out of carry-on suitcases. We decided that it's more important for us to be happy than the chance that maybe we'll have more money for later in life. Do it now because we didn't trust that our health or other family problems would come up we took the window of opportunity and said, we're going to go for it. We're going to travel full time.
We've been doing this for almost 2 full years with no intention of stopping or slowing down or changing paths drastically
Or
anytime
regrets.
soon.
We have no
regrets. No regrets at all.
Yeah.
And yes, there are challenges that slow travel or traveling full-time brings, but every choice that you have in life has challenges. And we've just decided that we have one life, we want to make the best of it, and that means doing what makes us happy, not what society might tell us we're supposed to do. There are people breaking the rules every single day, showing what's possible that people don't always think is possible.
It's fun breaking the rules sometimes.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'd love you to subscribe if you haven't already. And one of the best things that you can do for us is to share our videos with your families and friends.
And check out findinggeneandread.com, where you can read the articles Judy's talking about and see a lot more about us and our community forum.
Until next time.
Until next time.